Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Mystery Sports Podcast. And the first legs of the Champions League have gone underway, and we've seen a couple of surprising results, should we say? I thought a couple of the games, especially the last night, we were kind of, I think I was expecting in the Barcelona game a more closer affair. However, in the Liverpool game, I thought it was going to be a bit more like PSG were gonna have the lead quite, um, not dramatically, quite emphatically, should we say. However, Liverpool, they're only 2-0 down, and we'll go straight into it, and as you guys can see here, you can see the bracket view, and, the first game on there is Paris Saint-Germain 2, Liverpool nil. What did we see in this game then? So, from what I didn't watch this game fully, I did watch the Barca Atletico game. However, I was flicking through and just checking the scores and stuff like that. I thought, Liverpool, they look quite weak. They didn't have any shots on targets. That's the main thing here. And I think surely it's the beginning of the end, or we are at the end of Arnie Slot's time in charge of Liverpool, judging by the fans' reactions and just everything about Liverpool's performance last night, not having a single shot on target was absolutely diabolical from them. I think, if you're Liverpool and you want to have some sort of you know, some sort of challenge against PSG and try and get yourself into a semi-final. I don't think, having going away from home and having 0 shots on target, only 3 shots for them in the night was quite poor. And, they've got so much making up to do now at Anfield. It's only 2-0 though. That's what I will say. It's only 2-0. It's easily turned over. It can easily get to 2-2. However, looking at Liverpool's defense, looking how poor attacking wise they have been in recent games, getting battered off City, as I mentioned in the preview. If you've not seen that, go check that out. That is in the link of the description. You can see my predictions and how correct or how close I was to the correct score lines. But as I said, it's only 2-0, so they do have a chance still. However, I just don't see PSG conceding. And I don't see Liverpool keeping a clean sheet, quite frankly. They could win 3-1. However, I don't see that happening. I just see PSG going to Anfield next week and absolutely doing them over again. You know, it's good for Liverpool fans. It's disappointing for them. I don't think they want to hear me say that Liverpool are going to be out of this Champions League. I think they all know that, though. If they're being realistic, and if I'm being realistic, they are out of the Champions League, and they've just got to focus on now qualifying through the league places. As we know, England have got that 5th place secured. So basically, what that means is that 5th place now is a Champions League spot. However, if Villa were to finish 5th and Liverpool finish 6th, should I say, um, and Villa do win the Europa League, that means that 6th will be Liverpool's position in the Champions League. However, I don't think Aston Villa will finish that low. I do think Liverpool will finish 5th and will get Champions League. I think it's between them and Chelsea. Whoever is the most inconsistent will miss out. And sorry, Chelsea fans, I think that's you, judging by the way you performed in the league and things like that. However, in terms of a Liverpool's perspective now, if they can get a miracle in the Champions League again, it would be great to see. They already beat Galatasaray at home. However, this is a different kettle of fish. The European champions, arguably the main or the bookies' favourites to win the Champions League. But like I said, I do think that PSG will go through. And when it comes to do a preview of the Champions League, I will go through what I think the scoreline will be after the second leg. Then we go into the next game, Real Madrid versus Bayern Munich. A 2-0 lead for Bayern Munich. Louis Diaz scoring and Harry Kane for them. It looked very comfortable for Bayern Munich. However, Madrid did have a couple of chances. One where Vinicius missed it, which should have been a goal. Vinicius puts that in, and obviously they do score through Mbappe. It could be 2-2, and you go to the Allianz next weekend, Real Madrid, like, okay, as long as we don't concede 2 and, we score, we keep either get it into extra time and make Bayern work, then, they have a chance. However, in my opinion, I think Bayern Munich will win the Champions League. I think they're very, very strong. It just cemented it watching it yesterday, not yesterday, sorry, on Wednesday night, how strong, or Tuesday night, sorry, should I say, how strong Bayern Munich are as a team. I think from defense, well, from goalkeeper with Neuer getting man of the match, fantastic to see at 40 years old. Then seeing the defense, how solid they were, the midfield as well, solid, and just the attackers, arguably the best attacking line in the world right now, Harry Kane, Louis Diaz, and Michael Elise. I think for Bayern Munich's perspective, it was a great performance from them. Probably only disappointment is that they let Real Madrid score. However, you're taking a 2-1 lead into the Allianz. And, I think Bayern at the Allianz are a very, very strong side. And I don't see them slipping up. And I think they get into that semi final. And in my opinion, I reckon it'll be a PSG versus Bayern Munich semi final. Possibly, you could argue a final in the semi final if you get what I'm saying. And then we go down to the other half of the draw. We've got Barcelona nil, Atletico Madrid 2-0. The first victory since for Simeone in 19 years at the Camp Nou or New Camp, sorry, New Camp, not the Camp Nou, New Camp. Um, you know, Atletico, they took the chances. Barcelona gave it to them on a plate, really, with our Helio, not our Helio. Who was it? I think it was Pau Kabasi getting sent off, was it? Um, who got sent off? I think it was Pau Kabasi. Yeah, Pau Kabasi getting sent off. That pretty much gave Atletico the game, and Alvarez scoring that free kick in the 45th minute, and obviously going 2-0 through Shaloff, which was Alexander Shaloff, which is a very good, neat finish. Um, in terms of the actual game, though, it was surprising to see that Barcelona had more shots than Atletico. However, I do think, though, coming into that next game, anything can happen. And with Barcelona's attacking threat with Yamal, Rashford, Lewandowski, that game is still in the hands. And like I said, for the Liverpool game, it is only 2-0, and Barcelona are a very good, strong side. So we'll see what happens. Will it be the attacking force of Barcelona that will go through, or will it be Atletico's dark arts and Simeone's incredibly defensive football that goes through? They've got the advantage. In my opinion, I do think Atletico will go through with a 2-0 advantage, and the dark arts of Simeone and Atletico Madrid, I think they just go through. I think it'll be a very close game in the second leg, but we'll see what happens. Defensively, if Atletico are strong and, keep them Barca from scoring and Yamal from playing and Olmo and things like that, I think they've got a very good chance of going through, and, more than a very good chance with them being 2-0 up in the first leg. And then the final game, Sporting Lisbon nil, Arsenal 1. Probably the worst game of the night. And I know a lot of people will say you're only saying that because you're a United fan. And I'll be honest, I did watch this game first before I did watch the Real game after half time. And it was very boring, I thought Sporting were unlucky. They hit the bar and stuff. They created a couple of chances. I didn't really see Arsenal create many chances, really. Obviously they are 1-0 up, so you have to say well done to Arsenal, take your hat off to them. However, I just think that that game was kind of a bit like just like, oh my god, it's so boring. And Arsenal took a lead through Havertz, which was good. Having that lead, you take that to the Emirates now, and I think you're in a very, very strong position to go through. And if Arsenal can, win to a 3-0 on the night or score early at the Emirates next week, then I think they are through. So I think that sets up for an Atletico versus Arsenal in the other semi-final. Then that's where your challenge is for Arsenal. I think obviously, as everyone keeps saying, as I've said as well, Arsenal had a favourable side of the draw. The semi-final was going to be the hardest game, and I think obviously it's a semi-final, it always will be. And we'll see what happens there. However, Sporting, if they can get an early goal and get it back to 1-1, then I think they've got it all to play for in that second leg at the Emirates. And Arsenal aren't on the best of form, bottling it in the FA Cup, possibly bottling the league and, losing that Carabao Cup final. But we'll all wait and see what happens next week at the Emirates, which would be an amazing game. And hopefully, That's more action, and we see those Barcelona come back. If you imagine if Liverpool come back, it'd be great to watch to see, that kind of end-to-end football and, what way can it go? What side will the pendulum swing? Could it swing in Barca's favour? Could it swing in Atletico's favour? Do they go 3-0 up or something like that? Would be great to see that as well. But that is everything for today. We have got the Masters, which is underway now, actually, as we speak. So tomorrow, when I do the Manchester United preview, when they host Leeds on Monday night, we'll talk a little bit about round one of the Masters and day one, what's been happening there. Obviously, as I mentioned, United as well. We'll talk a bit about that. And obviously, the Premier League is back after the international break. So stay tuned in for that. Drop a subscribe, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, turn your notifications on as well so you know when I go live for the preview and future videos. And thank you all for watching. Catch you all in a bit.